Welcome back to another LinuxGameCast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, Black Mesa has Made with a Penguin, but will it ever leave early access? And the fine folks at Stainless have released yet another Carmageddon game in the series. But what's that? What? Oh, did they ever make good on that first stretch goal on Greenlight?
Nope.
No.
AMD has some new drivers, so those of you on older cards should not get your hopes up. And you want to play some Diablo? Me too, but it doesn't run.
Sophie Holden lands her first Steam game, and according to her Twitter feed, it may be the last. And the GeForce 1070, much like the 970 before it, has memory issues. It's not a 7.5 gigabyte card, but it may as well be if you overclock it.
I'm Vince Stone here at LGC Actual, switching the bits, doing the Nightmare Fuel all under the Linux because it is sweet like that. Yeah, that's right, we are the necessary evil. Joined every week from the man up north, not Santa Claus.
Ho, ho, ho. Where are my hoes at?
Jeez, LGC cares, that's Master's Fate, all the way from Space Portugal.
That's the way to start a show right there.
Pedro Montes.
Hello.
And helping us make the special little bit known as Cocaine Voltron is Shad Realm. Doing it live. Before we get started, we like to see what's going on in each other's life organs. Lads, I'm just going to get this out of the way. Last week, basically the southern East Coast, all the internets went NERP. We were kind of affected by that. That's why we did a Sunday show. We even skipped church just for you. LGC cares. And this Friday, in Chicago area, because Chicago kicks ass and the surrounding areas, all the AT&T services got noped. So I'm just kind of sitting back waiting for the other shoe organ to drop, snacking on some popcorn, seeing where this is going to go. What's up, J-Baby?
And then it explodes! No. I aged an entire year in one day, apparently.
Old man Jordan.
Yes, old man Jordan is 27 now, I guess. Yeah. So that happened on Friday. I went and bought, like, I don't know, another pillow to straighten out my back as a birthday present. Exciting!
And for some reason, you'll still sit on the ball. I, on the other hand, finished Mad Max. Took me about 59 hours to basically 100% everything that weren't like the challenges. But I had a look at some of the challenges, and there was literally one called Being Overly Specific, where you had to be driving the Aurelian D Prepared Archangel and destroy a car while in a storm. And I said, fuck that business.
Well, there's a little bit of business we like to tend to every week with the help of our horse, who has an affinity to get face-fucked by toasters.
Yeah, no, see, it's kind of weird, because I'm seeing it fine from one eye, and the other eye just makes me want to vomit profusely. It's the Steam Update of the Week. All right, so this is a very wordy and complicated article. In short, Oculus has this thing
Jordan,
called
I think the big story here is this young lass right here.
The collector.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. I guess that is some of the new erotic applications for the HTC Vive, but that's neither here nor there. This is a family show, people. Come on. There are children who watch this. No, there aren't. But Oculus, in order to compensate for less powerful computers, implements a technology called asynchronous time warp, which essentially allows the screens on both sides of the head unit to effectively broadcast at 90 frames per second, which is required, or else you start getting the Robert Goulet vomit spin dome Will Ferrell thing from Saturday Night Live. Look that up if you don't know what that is. It's a good time. But Valve has been looking into other possible options in what they call asynchronous reprojection, and their issue with that is that it will only support specific types of GPU hardware, and they want the most generic solution possible. So they're still doing some work into this. They are using this reprojection technique to ensure that both eyes get the full 90 frames a second. What I find interesting about the article, though, and what they bring up is that Oculus and Valve seem to be going in a slightly different direction, where Valve is like, yeah, no, you need to like pass our test to even qualify for like the minimum VR experience. Versus Oculus sources who say, oh, you could run it on this computer. So it seems like two different mindsets for the ultimate end goal of getting this adopted. But again, like Ven constantly says, no one likes wearing shit on their face. So you're gonna be running into some issues with that regardless.
I don't know, man. I kind of thought about it. What's going to be the under-over of this technology finally making its way to Linux? And I'm like, oh, probably right after the technology actually makes its way to Linux, which it's supposed to happen because of...
It was supposed to happen last week.
Yeah, man. We'll see, man. But Valve time, don't get upset about that. And it's kind of interesting, what Oculus is doing and what Valve is kind of doing as well is, different ways to render this business into your iPussies so it doesn't have to render the entire thing at the one time. And they have all these batshit insane ways of trying to explain it. But it was like, yeah, we're just rendering what's in front of you. And maybe that'll make it faster. It'll work on lower hardware, and you can totes go out and buy the 1050 or something, right?
Probably not the 1050, although the 1060 should give you enough juice to run it. But there's one specific quote that says that our goal is to provide high-quality VR to customers, and we all see reprojection techniques as a safety net for the occasional drop frame. It is up to each software application to specify their minimum spec for that engine, since only they can vet what minimum GPU is actually required to render their assets at that frame rate. And this is just Valve speak for, we don't want to deal with it, it's on the game developers' hands, they fucking deal with it.
Okay, let's move from that to lead wall hacks.
Indeed. So, everyone who's played a Counter-Strike game over the years knows that they're riddled with cheaters and grievers and tons of other really shitty behavior. And the people at Valve have been trying to fight this for years. That's why there's the VAC system. I can't remember what the...
Valve anti-cheat.
Valve anti-cheat, that's the one. Thank you.
That anti-cheating system by Valve. What is it called?
VAC something?
Indeed. So, yeah, no, blame it on my brain and not remembering names as it was supposed to. But yeah, no, Valve has been under fire because the latest upgrades to Counter-Strike Global Offensive have introduced a bunch of new exploits that have let people cheat and wall hack.
Now, the big thing about this article, they're definitely talking about griefing. As somebody who doesn't, I mean, I know what a CSGO is, bro, but what's this griefing? Do you just be like grief, or what?
Griefing is like you target a specific player and you make his or her life hell. And this is a big thing, especially when cheaters are involved, because let's say you manage to kill a cheater. You beat the cheater and he targets you. You become the focus of his attention and you just can't have a good game because the moment you move to another server, he goes after you and he's still hounding your ass. That's a problem. And Valve has to deal with it in some way. Now, there have been ways to sort of prevent this over the years. Or, well, not prevent it, but to deal with it, which was the Overwatch program. The Overwatch program were a bunch of people that were literally reporting cheaters and grievers, and they were saying, okay, so you can ban these people temporarily, and then Valve themselves would look at the reports and the match replay, and they would either ban or not ban said people, depending on what they deliberated on. And this just makes, it's a sort of a more aggressive attempt to curb those cheaters and those grievers, because the last two times I went into Counter-Strike Global Offensive, I was consistently killed by wall hackers, and it was painfully obvious because when you watch the replay, you would see them following my character's head through the wall and then shooting me the moment I was outside. So that was really, really obvious. And
so what is Valve doing currently now to make the situation worse? Because that's what the article's about.
Yeah, that's the big thing, because there are a lot of people worried, especially on Reddit, where they're saying, oh, Valve is just banning people left and right because they're not actually looking at the match replays, and they're just, if X person has a lot of rapport, so you just ban them. And if that's happening, that's really bad, and shit's really fucked
Well,
at
it
that
could
point.
be bad. My first thought when I heard this was, okay, is this another example of Steam trying to solve a problem by automating it poorly?
That's what most people are worried about, because as Valve has demonstrated in the past, that's not going to work very well. And yeah, Counter-Strike Go is like the 2 most played game on Steam right now, so
You're losing any sleep over Jim.
Number 3 is gambling for CSGO skins.
no, number 3 right now is Civilization 6.
Well, you can sell those skins and have some extra
Yeah.
coin left for the sale.
Sale! Yeah, no, this is another Valve trying to get all the money out of your wallet. And so they have a Halloween sale from my birthday to November 1st. And they have a lot of stuff on sale. The System Shocks, though that's a wine bottle. Killing Floor 2 was not available on Linux. Metro, hey, Metros are fun.
Metro's good.
Yes.
One thing that kind of just tickles me is if you scroll down, in between the one set of Halloween themed games and the other set of Halloween themed games, you can rent the entire Saw franchise for like $20 or $30 and watch it on Steam, right? I'm
For
so
like
excited
2
for
days.
renting movies on Halloween. It's my favorite part. I can't just go to Netflix or the local video store and get a video.
I noticed a couple of things in here that were pretty good. I mean, the Metros is in there. I think there's a couple of Penumbra titles. I've heard things about Slayaway Camp. I don't know if they're good or bad, but I've definitely heard the things. Do we have any?
Amnesia's on sale for $5.
Yep, Don't Starve. That's not too bad. Carmageddon. We'll get to that later. Killing Floor.
Darkest Dungeon is on sale. That I would give
Yeah,
that a hard
and I
recommend.
think the big one right here is Mad Max. If you don't have it right now, it's 50% off as it is.
Wait,
So pick it up.
Dying Light. Come on, Dying Light. It's 50% off. It's $29.99. And even at that price, I don't want to buy it and refund it again. Seriously.
Yeah, no.
But
That's going to have to come to like 90% off for me to buy it.
But of course, if you love walking simulators, you can always pick up Layers of Fear.
how about I pick up Black Mesa? Because it's available for Linux.
What? No,
Yeah. Halloween update. It's a thing. Highlights. Linux client beta. Done. We're done here.
Fucking finally. I mean, what? We've been following this thing since since some of the early Linux Gamecast episodes were like, is it going to come to Linux? We don't know.
Yeah,
Lo
I
and
know.
behold.
And it was like, okay, there used to be a thing. And it's like, oh, yeah, I remember there was that free thing. And you could get it up and running in Wine. It was pretty good. Completely. This is the reason Half-Life 3 is not released yet. I finally finished Half-Life 2 Episode 2. And I was like, I really had those, like, what experience? And everyone got to see my meltdown on social media. I was like, really?
and everyone in the comments was going like,
Yeah.
welcome to the real world.
Welcome to the real world, Neo. But like the big thing, this is what's holding Half-Life 3 up, is I've never finished Half-Life 1. I know it came out for the Linux, and I got it. I yoinked a copy. And I was like, it's just a little too dated. I mean, I put some time into it. I wasn't a huge fan. This, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get some of that. Then I hit the early access page, and he's like, you want $20 for something that you haven't finished, man? Nope. Mm-mm.
20 bucks for
Yeah.
a fan game is a bit steep, too.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. Is that does it still end like 4 levels earlier than the original version did?
Well, they actually say in this post here they are still working on the Zen levels, so I assume there's some.
Okay, so it still does. Yeah. All right.
Now,
Okay.
gentlemen,
I mean,
here's going to be the real question. I mean, what happens first? Do we get Half-Life 3, or does this exit early access? Because these guys are about on Valve time.
You know what? I would put my money on this exiting early access before Half-Life 3 because
It's never gonna
there's.
come out.
I mean, Valve isn't behind Black Mesa. That is the only reason why.
Yeah,
They
and Valve
can't
doesn't
rest
make
on
games
their-
anymore, so Half-Life 3 is not coming
Hey, man,
out.
Valve can make some
they-
very
they
nifty
can't rest
hats
on
for
their
this as
laurels
DLC.
Yeah, the Crowbar Collective, as it were. But yeah, I guess it's time to die.
Well, it's a little bit of a fatal theory. I was like, oh, look, this is a game. They sent us a copy, full disclosure, way back when, not way back when, but like a month ago. And I was like, nah, all right, it's in the sale. What is it? You never heard of it. Well, it's a run-around old school beat 'em up. And they're like, hey, guys, guess what? The controllers under Linux should work now. If you want to pick this thing up, it is currently $3.99 I might give it a look. Considering, I started it and it was an older Unity title, so it was spray and pray with controls, and it just was not happening. So, yeah, I might try that. What is it? You never heard of it? It's a nostalgic beat 'em up. So, yeah, hipster pixel.
It looks like a Metal Slug.
Yeah. And, all right.
Mixed with some Streets of Rage.
But it does only work with an Intel Atom N455 at 1.66 gigahertz. That's kind of the downside.
That's a pretty low bar you're setting right there. I hope you're ready to back that up.
I don't know. Well, on the one hand, it's a Unity game. On the other hand, it's a sprite-based Unity game. So who the fuck knows? But up next, we got Skybreak. You might remember this from the whole, everyone hated No Man's Sky, but this might be the thing that rescues that genre type thing. It's available on Linux. It's been released. You can pick it up for about 15, 16, 17 bucks, depending on where you live. And the real question is, can it live up to the promise? Because it had like a really interesting trailer where you crash landed on a planet. You have to like build things to get around. I went through a lot of the negative reviews, and most of them seem to be focused on the unfinished nature of the game and the actual lack of content. Because while there is a lot to do, there's not really a lot to do. It's all a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, I was definitely hesitant about this when I first looked at it. Right. I was like, well, this looks like it's in the stages of being competent. Graphically, the fidelity of that, I was like, okay, that's definitely going to be something. And between then and now that it's out and it's released, and they like, yeah, print it, let's do it. No, it just doesn't look that great. But, Pedro, do you think this is going to be still a better love story than No Cisgender Male Sky?
Yeah, no, according to the reviews, because I too had a look at the reviews on the Steam page, and it seems to point out that it has the exact same issue as No Man's Sky, except in No Man's Sky, you can actually go to an entirely new planet, and here you're still in the exact same planet. You're just going and exploring different biomes, but they all have the exact same thing.
Yes, but it's not procedurally generated. I hope not.
I will say this about the system requirement, though. This is the recommended specifications for running Linux. So, I mean, you can play it on pretty much anything as long as you got one of these, right?
Well, I don't know, man. Yep. You have to have the elusive 3 gigabyte module. Is that the 3 gigabyte?
Well, that's the minimum spec. I have the recommended spec, which is the 4 gigabyte module.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's go from broken promises, and the only thing this game has over No Man's Sky really is the Linux support, to Sophie Holden, one of our favorite developers right here on Linux Gamecast Weekly. She was the mind behind Rose in Time, and she has put out her very first Linux Steam game, as it were, which is Bang Bang Bang. It's a party game
which we actually covered a while ago.
Yes, we did. It's a party game where you get your friends together and you all shoot at each other. It's a niche title. Let's be honest.
Wait, so you're basically saying this is a baby shower?
Kind of.
All right.
Yes.
I would say it's more like a bris than a baby shower, but that's just me. But I mean, it's a decent enough. You're
the only one here, Jordan, that has had any experience with that.
Hey, man, listen, why not both? A shower of foreskins.
Whitey's got a pan. That price is foreskins. No, but this is one of the more interesting party games from one of the more talented game designers, or one of the more talented indie devs out there. So if he definitely has a good eye and good taste in game design.
Pedro, I got a question for you, man. I'm looking on the Steam store and I'm not seeing the Linux button.
Yes, there is no SteamOS icon right now, even though there is a Linux version, and if you buy the game, you get the Linux version. But Sophie was actually ranting on Twitter earlier this week about how an update forked her system and she couldn't really get it to work, so she was asking people on Linux to help her test the game. So I replied as yeah, I can test it for you, and she sent me a key and I managed to try it. There was one issue where the Logitech F310 wasn't mapped right from the get-go, but once you went into the options menu, you mapped it, everything would work. I told her that on Twitter as well, and she also started ranting like, oh, so my game is now on Steam. It's not selling very well. I spent a shit ton of money and time upgrading the game and making sure it was working properly, and it's not selling. So I might just become like a Nintendo developer or something. So yeah, this is probably her first and her last game on Steam.
And of course, you can get all our other games on itch.io as well.
Yeah.
Which is the new home of the Unity Get
Right, but I mean, there's something to be said to that, especially when you walk into things like that. I mean, a lot of expectations. You can have an incredibly good game, and it can never get any traction.
Yeah, Bang Bang Bang, it's a party game, but that's like a niche within a niche. And if we were to take like a page from Stephen Sausage Roll's book, the best game that she could have ever released on Steam and really have some mainstream market appeal was, in fact, Rose in Time, like I mentioned. And
interestingly enough, you bring that up. Sophie Holden is actually credited in Stephen Sausage Roll.
Yeah, because she and Stephen, I can't remember his last name, Stephen Lavelle. They talk a lot on Twitter and they share a lot of ideas. It's actually awesome to follow those two because they really get into it. It's awesome. But
wait,
yeah,
all I'm hearing is that like they're definitely both sadistic, evil people. If she had anything to do with Stephen Sausage Roll,
Probably.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Although apparently, like the week that we were reviewing that game on Twitter, she's like, "Okay, I've solved like 19 or 20 of these puzzles." I'm like, "How?"
yeah, I know, right? And you said there's like I've almost like figured the first one out.
Yeah, I think
it's
like it was through her Twitter feed that I found out that there were other islands in Stephen Sausage Roll that you could go to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so that's enough of that. That'll wrap up the Steam news segment. Coming up next, oh, we got a lot of stuff. So big,
indeed.
We can barely fit it all in.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's almost time for the news, but before we get to that, we have some very special patrons to thank.
Yes, it's a very spooky thank you to our lovely Patreons who had point their spooky browsers over to patreon.com/LinuxGameSpoop or LinuxGameCast and donate their hard-earned money to fuel this nightmare train off its rails and straight into your eye pussies. We got some lovely people we want to thank this week. Stephen R. kicked in through PayPal. We got Cody Smith. We got...
Wait.
Oh, yes. Yes. Ben produced a video and posted it on Patreon, didn't he? For the lovely people there.
Right. Also, the ones below are a way of give.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that true? Well, then. That's right. We had a bit of a contest last week for... It was either Slain or what was the other one?
No, it was Guns of Icarus.
Guns of Icarus. So if you want to shoot some airships down, you are a bunch of lucky people, and your names are, or I guess we're doing the random number generator thing here.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you got your random number generator?
Fuck no.
Well.
Let's see, a random number.
Ladies and gentlemen, while Jordan's pulling that up, we do want to take the time to thank everyone who is helping support the show, keeping us loud, live, and independent. You are the reasons we're able to do this. Not only do we do this, we do a show on Wednesday called Linux Weekly Daily Wednesday. That is 100% funded by Patreons. If you're not a fan of the Patreons, maybe you just want to put some cash on that barrel, go to linuxgamecast.com, hit that support the show button. We got some Amazon links. You want to shop through that, that'd be brilliant. We get a little bit of that taste, and trust me, that does help out. Plus, we have those PayPal buttons. Send us a one-time donation like Mr. Steven did this week. Yeah. A lot of people don't know this about Steven. He can fly. It is amazing. I've seen it. So, do we have our RNG?
According to the RNG, I rolled 1d4, and I got a 1. Which means that Cody Smith wins a copy of Guns of Icarus.
Woo!
Mine. Woo! Sorry, other guys, you're just a bunch of losers, but we love you anyways.
Yeah, we really do.
But let's kick this off, as Pedro will often say in true LGC fashion, not NVIDIA drivers, but AMD GPU Pro drivers. For those lovely people who have GCN 1.2 cards and up. Yeah, sorry, GCN 1.0 guys, you still get fucked. But there's not really much in the way of additional support being included.
Oh wow, AMD, you don't let a person scroll unless they
Oh yeah, no, it's full of wonderful stuff. The links to the Red Hat and Ubuntu drivers are in the show notes, as are all the show notes links. They added a couple new video cards, the RX or the R9 M485X, R9 a bunch of Radeon mobile cards pretty much. They haven't really added a lot. But they did fix one bug with Company Heroes 2 where it occasionally hangs. But don't worry, it still runs like a rocket on your 1090T, so there's no need to worry about that. And that's really it. Oh, and known limitations in platforms with AMD and non-AMD graphics. X servers running non-AMD proprietary primary graphics may fail to start. So, Atomic Ass, you're the one person I know who has a setup like that. Watch out.
Yeah, that's a pretty big limitation, as they call it, because, you know, if I were writing that page, I wouldn't have called it a limitation. I would have said, holy shit, some people can't actually start that X server after they install the AMD drivers. That seems like a pretty big issue to me.
Pedro, you need to take a step back, son. These are people that are accustomed to installing AMD drivers. So, X and opening, they're like, okay.
I did that from 2005 up to 2014. Yeah. And for those 9 years, I had some issues where the X server wouldn't even start, but that was usually on my end because, I'm missing this package, maybe the GIMP help files or something, whatever. But like Company of Heroes 2 occasionally hangs and unable to log into the system after driver installation on certain platforms, compounded on the X server not even starting.
If you're running AMD and non-AMD graphics, that's a fairly narrow use case, but I mean it does.
Well, we
still
should point out that Basil says the
Pro drivers.
Yeah, the Pro drivers on his E10 7890K, they work, but make fucking all difference. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, they are using a lot of code ripped from just the Radeon SI driver from Mesa. But with AMD GPU Pro, they have their own binary blob component they throw on top of that exists in user space.
It's just FGLRX under a new name.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, what would you expect from the three of us talking about AMD, since we're just massive NVIDIA fanboys?
Totally.
Oh yes, that's true. And you know, those cards are kind of sexy. I'd say they're pretty hot.
Oh yeah.
But the 1080 and 1070s from EVGA are apparently having some overheating issues due to some missing thermal pads that are causing some pretty significant heat spikes.
Those VRMs are literally blowing up.
Yes, and to be fair, this is exposed under the Firmark benchmark, which is fairly high GPU load. You're not going to see load like this under standard use case scenarios. But EVGA has said that instead of you suing us, we're going to give you guys some thermal pads because EVGA understands that lower temperatures are preferred by reviewers and customers. But not me, because you see, I'm an excellent engineer, and I've engineered a new cooling system. It's revolutionary. It's powered by the sweat off your balls.
Man, I'm just saying, you need to patent that shit, son, before, before the Korean market gets on it. I mean...
But listen, it's an electrolyte solution. It conducts heat. It's salty.
Now, personally, over here, I think Pedro will agree. One of the better thermal conductors that we found, moose nipples.
Totally. But if you happen to live, like in Europe, where moose aren't particularly common, most AIB vendors actually bend their cards at like 75 Celsius. And according to this article, the Tom's Hardware original review was seeing temperatures going up to 84.46 something, so basically like 85 Celsius. And okay, Going up another 10 Celsius, it's very uncommon, but it shouldn't be enough to literally blow up one of the VRMs. Because there will be links in the show notes for all of this. If you click on the picture that has the little arrow pointing at the blown up VRM, you'll see that it actually blew up. How?
It's because it just didn't have the balls, man. But NVIDIA, what are they up to, man?
Yes, no. NVIDIA, when it comes to balls, NVIDIA has them mostly because of, all the money they're making. But
Money
I guess that
equals
comes
balls.
with...
Got it.
Yeah, I guess that comes with the monopoly. So, as you may remember, back in the day, the GTX 970 had a little issue with 512 megabytes of memory running at like 1/16 of the speed of the rest of the memory. And now, the GTX 1070 is having issues when you overclock it, and you overclock the memory, you're getting very significant slowdowns. So... this article comes from Digital Trends. You can read it all. They give a pretty good surface level explanation, and there's already a fix out there. Like EVGA, NVIDIA themselves, Gainword, and Palette have already pushed out VBIOS updates so that you can upgrade the firmware on your video card to get around this issue. Moral of the story, don't ever buy NVIDIA's 70 series going forward.
I don't know, man. First thing I was thinking about then was like, oh, you got a 1070. Your first thought, and now I know this is coming from me, but is to overclock it. I was like, yeah. I mean, I barely just started overclocking my 980, and I bought the one that was like wicked built for overclocking.
Twin Frozer.
Yeah, the Twin Frozer, baby. I mean, we're talking about, the one with the fans that don't spin unless you're playing games.
Yeah.
That one. But so you're saying there is a patch, you can get this fixed, so you will not have any type of graphical artifacting until it explodes, right?
Basically. And you also mentioned in the show notes, do you really need to overclock a 1070? Well, no, not under Linux in this day and age, because anything above a 970 on Linux right now, and the bottleneck is almost always on the processor. So, no.
Delicious, nutritious hyperthreading.
Fuck you, Jordan.
Going down my throat. Making my 980 still trade blow with your 1080.
So we got a little bit of news earlier this week from our good friends at Aspire. They sent out a little bit of a tweet, and they said, hey, we wanted to address a section of our fans that may feel left out recently, period. Dear Linux users, comma, we haven't forgot you, explanation point. Civilization is still possible. And I was like, wow, Aspire, that just came out of nowhere. I was like, good, man, good. But wait a minute. Why are you so busy? Fast forward like 2 hours later. It was like, Civilization is available for Mac. And I was like, you motherfucker. All right. Got it.
People on those new MacBooks are waiting to play that game.
I had to soften the blow a little bit. I understand that. I mean, it's definitely a thing, but it is out for Mac. And they came back and it's like, hey, man, we got to build a business case for this because of the way they port their games. Their business model is different from Feral's. And I understand that, and they make great ports. Gentlemen, are we holding our breath for this, or what is this, fan service, or do you think we'll ever see it? I mean...
Well, if it is fan service, I guess it's working, because someone literally went out of their way to create a GoFundMe campaign to send cookies to Aspire and say, please port your game to Linux, because that's how far we've sunk, apparently. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a GoFundMe campaign from Linux users to send cookies to Feral to say, please port Civ 6 to Linux.
I, for one, just want to be on the record of saying this is bullshit GoFundMe, because I tried to start PCP for Aspire, and they killed the project. I just don't think it's fair, man.
I mean, yeah, Aspire has to make the business case to I guess it's Firaxis is putting out the Civ games these days.
Oh.
Indeed.
Anyway, so they have to make the case to Firaxis, but And again, the only reason we got Beyond Earth very quickly, I think, was on launch as under Linux, was because they had gone through the trouble of porting Civ 5 already, and it was basically just making sure that everything works with the engine. So this is definitely going to take some time. They're probably going to stick with OpenGL. They're not going to go with Vulkan. But my thought was it would have been fun to do like a big ass Civ game with Chat Realm. That would probably take months. But I mean, we can still do it with Civ 5. But apparently Civ 6 is just everything good about Civ 5, but better.
Yeah,
so
according to some Windows-based media outlets, Civ 6 is basically the best Civ game on release that isn't an entire downgrade from the previous Civ game with all the DLCs and all the expansions and everything. So I guess there is some merit to it, and Aspyr, as Ben already mentioned, they've always done very, very good ports. Borderlands 2, even on the calculator back in the day, it ran very, very well with the Mesa drivers. So
I was surprised I was getting 60 FPS on Borderlands with the 1090T. So
yeah, and it's very good to see like a porting house that is committed to providing a good port and good performance instead of just, pushing the ports out, which is actually
is that a subtle jab at Feral?
It's a fair business model. Admittedly, that's maybe what Feral's doing, but they're actually focusing on performance and how good a port they can make it. So I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with, once again, Linux getting pushed to, the back burner as a second or third class citizen.
Maybe if it worked with the Steam controller, it could get some promotion from Valve. But up next, it's back from the dead.
Woohoo!
Oh yeah, this is like the third time that Desura has been bought by a different company. But hey, it's OnePlay. Those guys that make that service that only works on Windows.
Oh, they used to rent games, right?
Yeah, they rented games and Windows only games at that, and now they've bought Desura. And they say that, okay, so what's going to happen to like Desura, Indie Royale, and the other bundle type things that they do? They're working on it, and will the people who had Desura accounts be able to keep their games and download them and all that? And they say that they're also working on that, but they can't really make any promises about it. And they also, for some reason, decided to include in the FAQ whether or not OnePlay and Desura would be different websites. And really? Of course
they're also talking about Indie Gala and all that, and it's kind of weird. I mean, this originally started, I think the first purchasers were Linden Labs, creators of Second Nightmare, and then the other guys contacted, which we made a joke about on the show about them,
Bad Juju.
Right, Bad Juju. It was like, oh man, I hope they have a lot of coke and all that, which they replied back. Then they kind of noped. They went bankrupt, didn't tell the company, didn't tell the PR person that was busily trying to defend them, and then the PR person's like, oh, this is bullshit. I just found out I lost my job today, and apparently no one has any money. So thanks, I don't know. The biggest thing I'm concerned about is the developers, because I know they're still out there. I want to know whether or not they got paid, or at least a little bit of change for the money they were sitting on, Pedro. And, well, I don't think we're going to see this have a Linux client like Desura. Desura had a Linux client before Steam. Jordan?
Yeah, they did, and then they sort of open sourced that with the Desurium and whatnot. But honestly, OnePlay, guys, the Desura brand is so toxic right now that reviving it is completely pointless, especially now that itch has sort of taken over, picked up the mantle as the home of the Unity ghetto. But Pedro included this interesting little tweet from OnePlay and the ensuing conversation in the show notes. You can see the link to that. And one particular guy on the commenter, going back to Ven's point, was asking, are devs going to get paid out of OnePlay? Because they were not paid by Bad Juju. And the arrangement goes that they've bought the rights to the name and the website and nothing else. Mm-hmm. So this Louis P guy keeps like, well, they should pay devs. Why don't they pay devs? They should be paying devs. And people are calmly explaining they did not buy all of their assets, including all the debt that Bad Juju had. and therefore they don't have to pay the
They
devs.
genuinely just bought the name and trademark, right?
Yes, they literally just bought the name and trademark,
all the
hoping
nightmare bullshit
to bank
that's
on
going
this
to come
toxic
along
brand.
with that, man. So, are we about to install Linux on our PS4s?
Oh, yes. Yes, we are, because it's possible. Once again, unless you've updated to the very latest firmware, which is 4.05. If you have, well, then you're, still stuck with whatever firmware Sony is fitting down your throat. Because the guys at Chaitlin, it's a Chinese security, IT security company, have figured out a way to overcome the Sony PS4 for not one firmware limitations, and you can actually install and run all manner of Linuxy apps on the PS4, which is kind of amazing. And at the same time, they only released this video, and they actually only gave this presentation that you can see in the video. It's in Chinese, and there are like no subtitles whatsoever. So keep that in mind if you decide to watch it. But they only released all of this information after Sony released the 4.05 update for the firmware.
So you're telling me that the security firm responsibly disclosed a vulnerability to the upstream software manufacturer?
Indeed.
That is shocking and offensive, and I am triggered.
Really, the only thing I can definitely take away from this is boxed PS4s, new ones, have currently went up in value.
Well, with the Pro coming out, these are just going to become wicked cheap Linux boxes. You can pick one up used at an EB Games or Pawn Shop.
Yeah, and maybe if you weren't watching the video, you're definitely looking at it. It looked like it was booting XFCE 4 Best Desktop Manager, but it kind of looked like it might have only been giving like a Raspberry 3 a run for its money, man.
Well, and that's because while Mesa does support the GPU to some capacity, it is not 100% there, and there's some weird hardware stuff that they need to overcome and improve the drivers for. Apparently, their South Bridge is completely a big old clusterfuck. The Fail Overflow articles go in depth a little more on the difficulties and milestones involved with getting Linux running on the PlayStation 4. But the fact remains, it's primarily an x86 based system. It's going to run the applications for the most part. And once they get all these performance hiccups out of the way, it's an octo core with a decent Radeon graphics card. So, you're not going to be playing VR games on Linux. You're not going to be playing.
No, man. It's like two pieces of Linux kryptonite in a box.
Yeah. But it's definitely a thing. It's probably going to improve the lifespan of the PlayStation 4 and result in another class action lawsuit in a couple of years. So
probably, yeah.
Well, something that will probably never see Linux. That's right, Carmageddon. Max damage for PC is out. These dicks. That's stainless. Yeah. Not only did we had the Kickstarter way back 2014, 2013, 2012. Oh man, it's been a while. And I backed that, and they're like, okay, first stretch goal. This is back when stretch goals were a thing for Linux. Fortunately, that practice has died in a fire, which is good. But first stretch goal, Linux. Good. We're going to get that. I backed it. I gave them like 15 quid. I was like, be done with it. So then we wait, and they come out with like 2 mobile versions of Carmageddon, which no one asked for. Then they finally get around to releasing the clusterfuck that was the game. It was miserable. There was no way to make it performant. So that kind of tanked. And we're talking, it's not just the Kickstarter, but they had over $6 million to the steaming pile of note that they delivered. So they went back to the drawing board and tried to optimize it for consoles and re-released. You get a free copy if you own the original. And well, still haven't delivered that Linux port, or I don't even know if they finished or even started delivering the physical rewards from 3 years ago. And man, their artist sucks because I'm sorry. I'm guessing that's supposed to be Hillary Clinton.
To be fair, it looks more lifelike than her. Hey-oh, topical.
And a sentient Cheeto. Okay, got it. Yeah, holy fucking news, people. We still have not delivered anything.
Nope.
So
if you were a Linux user or a Mac user, because that's what the first stretch goal was, you get 2 things: dick and all. nothing else. Because, yeah, if you back the Kickstarter like, you know, the idiot like I was and like Ben was.
Not me.
Yeah. Jordan was the only one who didn't back the campaign on this particular episode of Linux Gamecast Weekly. I have the original Carmageddon reincarnation that they gave me a Steam key for.
Mm-hmm.
Can't run another wine because it needs DX11. And you can't run another Linux because, well, there's no Linux version because they just outright noped that stretch goal. And now they have given me the new game, Max Damage, for free. So I wonder, what the hell happened to that Linux port?
They're really playing the long game of I hope people quit bringing up, well, fuck you, Stainless. Like I said, we might be the necessary evil. That you do need these people like us in the community to tell you to eat a bag of dicks, you glue stick munching troglodytes. Seriously, fuck you. That is not cool. Maybe you'll get around to unfucking yourself, but I don't have hopes because you can't make a proper fucking game.
So salty. So salty. All right. Let's wash out the taste of salt in your mouth. The taste of gold. This is GoldenEye Source. The Half-Life mod, or the Half-Life 2 mod, that allows you to relive the glory days of shooting Oddjob and missing because his character model is shorter than everyone else's. But if you don't have memories of that, congratulations. You can go through an entirely horrific Linux build process that I went through.
What are you talking about? It's 6 steps, man.
It is. Honestly, it's not too bad. You need to do a bit of dependency hunting, and their CMake script doesn't check for all the dependencies right away. So while you're running make, you're going to have to do some scrolling through some compile output to figure out what you need. The only things I needed to install that were out of the ordinary were the 32-bit build chain for GCC and glibc, as well as the 32-bit library for Open LDAP devel. I don't know what the hell it's even doing with LDAP, but it doesn't matter because I can't get it to start because the compile script spits out a client.so, server.so. Those don't run. I throw it in the source mods directory, restart Steam, install the 2007 SDK, restart it again, and nothing.
Terribly not shocked because everything I've read about it was server only. I will say, pro tip, it won't build against Python 3.5. But then again, the N64 was past my time. I mean, I was like, what? 14 or 15 when that came out, and well, I already had a Voodoo 1, so I didn't really care about the filthy console peasants.
Well, you didn't play Doom 64 and with its cutting-edge 3D graphics?
Son, I played Doom 32 on my 32X. Lawn.
I played Doom on my TI calculator.
I'm one of those idiots that went from the Sega Saturn to the PS2. So I have no idea. But yeah, no, I've seen some people play the Source remake of GoldenEye on YouTube. I don't feel particularly compelled to play it.
I mean, it was revolutionary for its time, right? It had a lot of neat stuff, but it's the Seinfeld syndrome where a bunch of new games have come out and done what GoldenEye has done better without the crazy hardware restrictions of the N64. And yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting artifact for people who have a soft spot for GoldenEye in their hearts or in their heads.
Did you need to use the Z button, the Z button on the N64 controller for that game? Because you remember that fucked up little button? I was like, what the hell is this thing for?
The trigger? Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
Well, the hard part was if you needed to simultaneously use the D-pad and the analog sticks, because then, like I said, the N64 controller was designed in an alternate timeline where humans have also
strafing and looking around. No.
But anyway,
gentlemen, let's get a nudie patch.
Source, yes, Friso, the free open source version of Sims Online, which requires the original game data for Sims Online. So if you don't have it, too fucking bad. But if you are a Linux user, there is some hope because with their latest version, this is what now? God damn it. I don't maximize the window. Just switch the tab, Chrome. Damn you. Whatever. It's the latest version. The link to it's in our show notes. I don't care anymore. They've made the switch over to monogames. So theoretically, according to a link Strider has posted in the show notes, this can run on Linux in a very limited fashion, sometimes, not always.
Mm-hmm.
But they have some new improvements as well. Their in-game speakers, due to the switch to mono game and some mono-based MP3 decoding libraries, can now actually play music in the game, so you can have a dance party. Oh my god!
But Strider's like, no, it's free. So,
well, free. So, well, that we're dealing with Frazo in the hate mail section. Ben, you're getting ahead of yourself.
Okay. Do you have anything on this?
Not really. Sims was never really my cup of tea.
Okay,
And
so one last.
I assume The Sims Online super appeals to you.
Diablo. Is that like Diablo? Oh, look, animated. That better be an animated GIF.
I think that one was actually ripped like right from the game.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So what is this?
So this is a free open source engine reimplementation, much like FreeSO, of the first Diablo game, which I actually really liked. I played a lot of it back as a child when I was a wee Cambodian girl. But they have they made some multiplayer progress, so you can now attack things and they'll fall over. But here's the thing: you have to build your you got to build your multiplayer ablo, your free ablo. I do like in their Git repository that the last commit in the CMake folder is just CMake. Ugh. which I got a good chuckle out of.
I can,
they do have some pre-made binaries. I built it for myself. But after hunting for some game data, because you need the MPQ file out of the installation CD, and then you need the exe file out of the actual installed game. It says that it cannot find file blank, error 22, and then does nothing. And that's about as far as I got.
I remember back in the day, in order to run the first Diablo, it wouldn't actually install much of anything to your hard drive, even if you picked like the full install. You would still need to keep the CD in your drive in order for it to load all of the assets, because the actual game was like 700 megabytes or 600 megabytes, and what it would install, even with the full install to your hard drive, was like 70 megabytes at most.
Yeah, no, I remember actually fitting my entire Diablo install footprint, because I was taking it to another computer and I didn't want to restart my character. I was able to fit it on 4 floppy disks. So
yeah. So I'm guessing you may have to keep, like, nowadays you probably have to rip that CD and just mount the ISO and keep it mounted and pray that it works.
Sure. I have an actual copy of Diablo somewhere around here. But because I don't have an optical drive to stick it in these days, I had to resort to other means. But, fuck you. I actually own the game. I paid money for it. Screw you guys. But if you guys feel like staying a while and listen, we're gonna get it, because Diablo. We're gonna be throwing some chairs at Nekro. You know, it's Halloween time. Lots of things are associated with that, you know. Creepy spiders, ghosts, goblins. And in honor of the upcoming Halloween, we've decided to review a game from that had died. This is Nekro from Dark Forge Games. You can't buy it anymore, so if you bought it and have it downloaded, that's about the only way you can play it. You have to go to archive.org to even look at the Steam page, which we have up for you on the video right now. It's lovely. It's wonderful. The dev did send us keys once upon a time, but considering development on this game has ceased, I am unclear on whether we need to disclose that or not. Regardless, there it is. This game that you can't buy anymore was gifted to us. So let's kick off the Chairquisition. Or I guess we should say what it is. Summon demons and spawn unholy weapons of war as a gleefully evil necromancer with an insatiable bloodlust for the innocent and corrupted alike in this darkly humorous, old school, spelled with a K, blend of action, RPG, and strategy genres. So yeah, Chairquisition. 1 chair means that it's crap, 2 chairs means that's meh, 3 chairs means that's pretty good, and 4 chairs means that they're spooky fucking pumpkin flavored chairs. It's pumpkin spice, you can't escape it. We also got our categories of doom mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So let's kick this off. Then did Nekro make with the working?
Over here on the spooky ghost, Ubuntu. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. Lame drum roll. 1604 LTS. Box of, man, it's still Ubuntu. Powered with 8150, running a 980, displayed at UHD. It works. I mean, it really hasn't been updated. It worked when it was originally launched, and for a Unity title, that was quite impressive. It still works. I like it. And the fact that it doesn't take anything down performance-wise. You know, when we first started testing this game, all I had was a 1080p monitor. And to be honest, I didn't switch to UHD to give this one, but at 1080p, it holds a solid 60 FERPs. So no complaints whatsoever. I'll give it 4 shares.
Yeah. Ugh. There's a burp somewhere, but it's not coming out. Whatever. On the... Oh, God.
Morty.
Why does this always happen in the mix with the working section? I can't help it. On the i7-6700K NVIDIA GTX 980 powered Fedora 24 box of business by my foot over here, Nekro ran pretty well. It also ran on the older computer running the 670 superclocked and the GTX or the AMD 1090T back when I was just using that. So no complaints there. It runs 4 shares.
Indeed, and on the FX 8370E with the GTX 1080, there were a couple of missions, especially when like a notification came up with the Steam overlay. The performance tanked, but the game itself, it never really did it on its own, so I can't really fault it for that. So for me, it gets 4 shares.
So that's 4 chairs for Mix with the Working. Up next is the Shiny and the Sounds. Ven, are you impressed by this 3-year-old game that has stopped being updated?
Well, let's be honest with ourselves. 2 years ago, especially 3 years ago, when this thing first hit early access, and it's like, that's for Linux. It was fucking gorgeous. It was fucking amazing. It was easily one of the top 3 best-looking games on Linux, because we get a ton of developers sending us keys. And we're like, all right. I remember launching, and I was like, whoa, what? Oh, this looks like an actual game. It didn't look like the normal trash. That said, even in 2016, it could still be on the top 20 in the way it looks. There's still a lot of placeholder art, but, you know, your basic character animation rigging and all that, and your levels, fairly well done. There was probably some more to be touched up, but we'll probably get more into that in the fun section. The sounds work, didn't really pay him attention because it's like, hello, I'm this random voice trying to say, you know, witty, quirky things. It's like, shut the fuck up. Put on some Slayer. Because that's what you do on Halloween, which is a damn lie. You put on typo negative, like a real person. So I'm actually going to give it a solid 3 spooky pumpkin spice chairs.
Well, you can also put on Halloween. That's appropriate. But yeah, for what it is, the game looks pretty decent still. The graphics look about as good as they do for an indie game of its era anyways. The voice acting, though, is a bit more of a mixed bag. The narration is kind of boring and skippable, and I read faster than the guy talks, so it's like, spice, as Tim Curry would say. And I mean, the soundtrack is all right. It's your generic heavy metal noodling. Not to the same degree that Slain Back from Hell had its noodling. This one actually looks like the musician put down more than 2 tracks.
Yep.
So that is definitely a thing. It still looks and sounds pretty good for an early access game that was abandoned, so I'll give it 3 cheers.
Yeah, there are some very, very obvious placeholder things in the game, like the floating question mark tutorial thingies and the flashing danger indicators. Also, the sprites for power, blood, and sin pickups. When you finish a level, there's like that little slow motion action shot of the last kill, and if for some reason that last kill dropped a sin or a power pickup, you're left looking at a very jarring contrast between final and unfinished assets. The music, on the other hand, is pretty good. Admittedly, I liked it a lot, because whenever you start a mission, it starts up with... It means to pump you up, and it does a very good job at that. So, music, I have absolutely no complaints on the other hand. And there's even a definite tone of silliness to the voice acting, which would be very effective if this wasn't a game which will never be finished. So for me, it gets 3 chairs.
All right. Well, that is 3 whole chairs for the Shining the Sounds. Up next is the controls. Then, did it work with your pumpkin spice Xbox controller?
Hey, man, I just want you to know I had to go through a lot of shit for the chairs to allow me to do the pumpkin spice thing. They made me out breakdance L. Ron Hubbard.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. So
that guy can cut a rug.
Just keep that in mind as we go forth. The controls, they do what they say on the tin, but for fuck's sake, you know, the old joke they used to say, well, you just need to tighten up the graphics. Well, you need to tighten up the controls on this. I think Pedro likes to say floaty. Not really floaty, just loose. Not suggestion stick loose, but like, yeah, there's that little bit of delay. It's just not precise like you really want. And, you know, when you are attacking, I think we all inadvertently, you know, with no communication, played the melee character. So when you're attacking enemies, you're just swinging and they're just standing. And hopefully, eventually they die. Really, the only mechanic that you can feel with the melee character is throwing out your spiky, chainy hook thing of nope and pull a person back. But that's about it. They work. I did not try it with... That tells you how long ago this was. Even today, it didn't cross my mind to try it with the X-Clune controller. I was like, no, it's probably not going to work. It can be a pain in the ass the way the default layout is set up. And with the sluggishness with the controls, you can't really do anything fast in this game, which is not very good in something that is like real-time. What do we call it? Strategy? I don't know.
Action RTS, yeah.
Yeah, RPG.
Single player MOBA.
There we go. But still 3 chairs because nothing's broken and you can get the job done. I just kind of wish they had, I don't know, not dissolved and managed to tighten it up just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I like when you get a prompt for something and then upon hitting the key, it just doesn't do it. So consequently, eating corpses only really works when the game feels like it. Beyond that, targeting this is kind of fucky because you need to click on the thing in order to actually target it, which is problematic. Because what happens is when you get your army of guys and you need to construct your army of guys or else you're going to get curb stomped. Mm-hmm. They all flood into the center of the screen, and it's really, really hard to pick out what you actually need to be clicking on. In addition, the UI is really bad about presenting enemy health because it's near the bottom of the screen in tiny ass text. Yep. That it will go away only and will appear only if you actually mouse over the enemy in question, which is problematic at times because when everything's overlapping, you got to hope that your enemy is on the top of that layer as shit. Other than that, like playing the melee character, you get a better sense for damage once you unlock the boomerang thing later on in the game. The hookshot thing is useful for. I'll get to this more in the fun section, but. The hookshot's only use is really to help you pick off 1 or 2 guys at a time before the cluster fucking begins. But the controls are definitely imprecise, and the game requires a level of precision that it doesn't support for the most part. You can get by, but it takes a lot of fuckery and attempts, and levels that you should be able to complete in like 10 minutes because of the controls require you to take 20. So I'll give that 2 chairs.
They more than once I tried to raise a zombie or a skeleton from a body on the ground, and even though I had the blood necessary to do that, the game outright refused to do what I told it to. Hitting enemies in this game has even less feedback than in Dawn of War 2. And we talked about that game a couple of weeks back. And that's a full-blown RTS. And it's actually very hard to hit enemies that on. Much like Ven and Jordan, I was playing the melee Nekro, and even though I was very clearly in range for that big-ass forearm mounted Bloodblade, most swings didn't hit. And whenever you hit one for the explodey tendril things that you can shoot, they often hit close, but never really exactly where you wanted them to. I don't know where exactly the aiming was because I was selecting the enemy and I had the mouse exactly where I wanted it to land, but it never did. I don't know what the hell is up with that, and I don't know how you can really screw up controls when it comes to multiplayer MOBA, which is relying on mouse precision as much as this game is. So for me, it gets 2 chairs.
Interestingly enough, to your point about the tendril, the aim is based on the mouse, because if you highlight over pumpkins or things that you can animate using the tendril, it'll go directly to them. So clearly it's designed to be imprecise for some stupid reason if you're going to use it to blow stuff up. And half the time it blows your stuff up too, which is also super annoying. Anyways, that's 2 chairs for the control section. Let's round this off, put a bow on it. Fun! Ben, did you have fun?
This is wicked simple. It's a dead game. Kind of felt bad that this game died. I'm genuinely sad. There's just humongous potential to make this fun. The 2 developers that were working on it, they kind of had the hullabaloo, and, one of the developers posted something about family issues, and it just, red flagged me. And I was like, nope, all right, something's going on. And 2 months later, sure enough, they just had this meltdown, and even though the other developers, the game's 99% finished, and, well, Brad, if this is 99% finished, I'm fucking glad you never released it. Here's the thing, though, man. I mean, there's a lot of things with this game that you could get into. They've never shipped the physical rewards. I mean, this was a Kickstarted project. But the one thing that I thought that would make this game genuinely fun was something that was in it since Genesis, and that was multiplayer. And that got killed with no explanation. We're going a little bit of a different direction. And that kind of sucked. But yeah, I really tried to get into this game. I was like, well, okay, maybe this can hook me back. Because I remember when I originally played it, but that was some fucking rose-tinted glasses. You fast forward 3 years, you revisit this. We have infinitely better games on Linux, and that makes up for how sad I am that this game never got fully developed. Is 3 years later, we have so many better games, from be it AAA games to indie publishers, just doing awesome work. But yeah, when it comes to Nekro, I say neck noped, 1 chair.
Or like neck no, am I right? Oh, all right. So like Ben said, there's definitely some potential here, and it's really is a damn shame that this game won't get finished. And really, the thing that kills this game the most is the controls, because I seem to remember playing this game a couple years back, and it was way easier than when I was playing it for this review. That may just be because I've all of a sudden decided to start sucking at video games, but that's always been the case. But one of the things that really stand out is in MOBAs, you don't typically have to micromanage your units. They sort of follow you around. They go through the various lanes that you have on the map, and they just sort of go and act as obstacles or support or whatever. They're kind of dumb. This one actually requires you to do some minion management. And there's a lot of really dumb minion management here. Dawn of War 2 got it right by just having the NPC, or the not really player controlled NPCs, the squads, recharge via drop pods and various other capture points. Here you have to go out of your way to kill and resurrect stuff, which can get problematic, because what really happens is the bad guys have way more hit points and do way more damage than your guys. So the only way to win is to swarm. And it becomes this weird exercise of going so far into the enemy camp so that you can hook shot one of the bad guys, and only one of the bad guys, bring them back to your giant pile of dudes, have them just completely destroy it, and rinse repeat. Juggling, eating, raising, and not getting killed means that, yeah, basically the big ass army that you build up gets shrunken really, really quickly. And there's some mitigation stuff. You get better units and you can upgrade them as the game progresses. But it's just kind of tedious. Oh yeah, I'm all ready to go, and oh no, this one giant guy killed half my guys, and now he's chasing me across the map, so I can go to that one spot where I can get infinite zombies. But once you get the hang of it, it isn't really too bad. I put a couple hours in the past couple days by accident, but the missions basically devolve into pick off the enemy where you can and hope that by the time you get swarmed, you have and can maintain the numbers advantage, because you just have to constantly be refreshing your guys. It's a bit tedious. It needs more polish. It needs better controls. And most importantly, it needs a developer. 2 chairs.
Yeah, drunk as I am, I like to take some time for a little bit of introspection, as it were. When Nekro first came out, look, when Nekro first came out in early access, I looked at it played it, and I was genuinely amazed at how much content there was and how good it looked and sounded, especially when compared to the other early access titles at the time. The lack of feedback in combat and the really horrible looking floating question marks, the really bad power and sin and blood sprites were something I was prepared to forgive. It's still being developed, so that'll probably get fixed at some point in time, I told myself. And late last year, news came that there was only one guy left working on the game. The other one had apparently locked him out of the Steam developer account and basically ran off with the money. And the slap fight went on for a couple of months until the game was outright removed from Steam. Hindsight being 2020, I probably shouldn't have ever used this game as an example of how to do early access right. So with that little really crappy preamble out of the way, in considering you can no longer buy it, is the game worth the time for those of you who already have it? If you're okay with the thought that it will never get any better and the bugs won't ever be fixed and the unfinished assets will remain unfinished, maybe. But for everyone else who didn't get it, don't worry. You're not missing anything. One chair.
All right. Well, I just woke up.
You caught me off guard. One chair.
Yeah. I mean, I just sort of woke up from that 1,000-year-long slumber. I'm a bit disoriented. What year is this now? Oh, still 2016. Well, it's another casualty of 2016. Nekro gets one chair in the fun category, but it does tend to walk away with a 2 chairs overall due to previous merits. So, gentlemen, final thoughts aside from this game needs to finish development.
The only thing I can say in favor of Nekro, A, I'm sad to see it go, so I guess there's 2 things. B, it has probably helped increase the value of our Steam accounts.
Oh, yeah. If you ever want to sell your Steam account and you happen to have Nekro and Earth Year 2066.
Got both of them.
Yeah. And what was the other one? Oh, no, they did actually eventually come back and put Raven's Cry back on Steam under a different name. Go figure. Yeah, no,
it went on sale recently.
Yeah, this game still puts Raven Cry to shame, don't get me wrong. I mean, it runs much better, and there's a hell of a lot more to it than Raven's Cry ever did. But it's not finished. It's very clearly not finished.
Yeah, and that's basically all you can say about this game, is it's not finished. There's lots of potential that seems to be wasted. Some developer politics blew this out of the water, but even before then, we were kind of getting radio silence. So for those of you who own it, maybe go back and check out Nekro. You might enjoy it for what it is. A little artifact of back when the promise of Linux gaming was on the horizon and we had seldom few examples. But coming up next, we got so much hate mail we couldn't cram it into one segment. It's kind of miserable.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the hate mail. And we actually got a lot of that this week. So if we didn't get to your specific bit of hate mail, keep your panties on. We might get to it at some point. But for next week, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can always go to LinuxGameCast.com, hit the contact button on the little nav bar there. You fill out the form, you prove you're smarter than whatever Ven's bot is at that particular day. Just make sure you pick Linux Gamecast Weekly, or if you are a regular of our Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays, you can also pick that. Just make sure to pick the right show on the little drop boxy there. But if you also see the show posted on, say, YouTube, Patreon, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, whatever, just make sure to track down the original post, and we will probably get back to you. And if it's something relevant enough, we will feature it right here on the segment. So, what did we get this week?
Well, go ahead. Fine.
I was going to say we got some mail from Nemo. Dak Resney in the chat realm, and he says, would game engines get a performance boost when they stop depending on X to deliver the renders to the display? Something about less context switches? Well, I mean, X is pretty fast these days. If you can play Quake on a spectrograph running an old X server, I'm pretty sure that speaks volumes about the performance of X. It is, but consequently, because
it was a spectrometer, not a spectrograph.
Fair point. I don't know anything about these things. However, because you can play it on a spectrograph, it is pretty bloated. So my thoughts are, at the very outset, we're going to see some performance dips. Because this is a new technology stack and we're still banging out the kinks in terms of drivers and performance and context switching and whatnot, but it will definitely improve over time, assuming some distribution actually takes the plunge and goes full weight.
Yeah, I do honestly believe we're going to get some type of like nightmare churn. There's going to be a hard transition period between.
Yeah, especially if
finishing this sentence, apparently. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you're taking games into account, it's really bad. And Valve themselves have said, I can't remember what his name was during DebConf 2014, that said that until we see an advantage into using Wayland over X, we're not going to do it. So most games on Steam would still require the X to Wayland conversion layer. So that's just going to add more shit that needs to do. So yeah, that performance dip, probably very likely.
And we're going to run into some weird things. I think Pedro's BFF and a guy I like who's been on our Wednesday show, Martin Winpress, wrote a wrapper so you could record stuff in Wayland.
You can, yeah.
And so you get all the new Unity 8 because you hate yourself and you wanted to run that and do it. So what is up now? Whoa, that's a wall of text. I'm not taking that one.
All right, so on November 28th, the Google Code-In will be launched. Hopefully my organization, MetaBrains, will be accepted. I'll know on November 7th. But either way, I'd be happy to join y'all and talk about it. If you don't know what it is, it's a Google open source office program for getting university students acquainted with and contributing to Floss. Kind of a smaller sibling to the Google Summer of Code program. Even if the 13 to 17-year-olds are not watching you, and I think we've proven time and time again that they are very clearly not, maybe other older siblings, parents, other relatives, teachers who can pass on the word might be a good platform to spread the word. Book me on IRC or something if you want me to tell you more about it, or if you want me to coordinate with being on the show for an episode. I suggest covering it on the episode on the 23rd, just before it starts, or on the 30th, just after it started, or both. Frezzo. Yeah.
Strader actually brought Frezzo into chat realm. He's currently idling in the IRC room right now. He has something. I don't know if he's in charge or he's a higher up on MetaBrains, which has to do with Music Brains, the music content ID stuff. For if you don't feel like going in and manually tagging all your MP3 files like some idiot.
Mm-hmm. No, man, we'll definitely get you in for that. The more the merrier. We might even throw that on the Wednesday show.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
It seems really well suited for it. So
yeah, it does. So you did it to yourself. We'll be in touch.
Uh-oh.
Putting a bow on it,
next.
I'll take this one. It's about a gerb from H54. Mr. D. He says, Jordan, my...
Jodan, not Jordan.
Jodan. All right. How the tables have turned. Pedro is gainfully employed. Well, you're out on your ass. In all seriousness, good luck on your hunt, and I hope you enjoyed the time off. Then, you ought to write a book about herding cats. Since you do it on Saturday and Wednesday, you have no idea. Help me.
See what I really want to bring Ben's suffering full circle is have him actually run a game of Dungeons and Dragons, because then he'll just die inside.
All right, can I do it in person with you with a loaded gun?
Beanbag gun. Actually, no. I've seen that episode of Archer. I know beanbags hurt. You get a squirt gun.
Oh, all right.
Meow.
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 He's drunk, ladies and gentlemen.
And on
I
that
don't know.
bombshell. And the cats have been herded, but we don't need to cue the music. You can always find us around 9:30 normally on Saturday. Easter time. Time's about to change. One good thing about the YouTube is it kind of gives you an idea when the show's going to come on, no matter where you're at. Even if you're near Carmen, San Diego. But I'm at Vinstone on the Twitter nets, plus Vinstone on the G+. Scream at me, I will scream back at you, more than likely.
I'm Jordan Spung, and if I only knew how cool death was, I would have killed myself sooner. You can find me at Burning Fool on Twitter or plus Jordan Spung on the Google+.
Well, I know how pretty cool that is, but I'm still taking my time with all the booze. You can always find me, probably not as sauced as I am tonight, at Unaccounted For on Twitter or plus Google, plus within Matheus on Google+.
Plus Google Plus at Nate. Yeah.
75% of his normal intoxication level.
And if you would like to see more of Pedro, I mean, just call me. I'll give you a list of episodes. There's about 40 of them, and it's quite
we have
brilliant.
the supercut. It's great.
But I guess the big question is, J-Man, is how does one get so drunk on balsamic vinegar?
That is an excellent question. I assume you have to consume quite a bit of it. Let's ask our expert, Pedro. What do you think?
Apparently, I'm not the only one who's been hitting the sauce tonight.
Then, yeah.
Sports water, bitches. Which I've had the equivalent of like 3 shots. So, yeah.
3 shots of 100 proof. 5 dudes.